Hello, everyone. It's Gianna Castro, host of the Women's Sports Matter podcast. As I'm sitting down to edit today is September 10th, which is also known as World Suicide Prevention Day, which also this episode contains matters of talking about mental health. So I wanted to put this in really quick before we get started. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is free and available 24/7. All you got to do is call 1-800-273-8255, or you can text the crisis text line. Just text them hello to 741-741. In today's episode, we do have discussions about mental health, suicide, depression, anxiety. We do talk about, how concussions can go into that. So I just wanted to put out this little warning just in case any listeners wouldn't be comfortable with listening to her experience, because we do go into it a little bit, and I don't want someone to be reliving their own experiences. So I just wanted to put this out in the beginning really quick so you can have the chance to maybe listen to as far as we talk about that. We talk about the mental health stuff at the end of today's episode before we do the lightning round questions. So again, just wanted to put that out there really quick. Also linked down below will be resources too, and then the number again, as well as where you can text. Before I hop off, I just want to say, if you can donate to these organizations like the Trevor Project or NAMI, which will also be linked down below. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Women's Sports Matter podcast. My name is Gianna Castro, and I am your host. Today, we're doing another interview. I keep getting so many amazing people on the show, and I just love not talking to myself alone in this office for 40 minutes by myself. But anyway, today we have a really special guest on the show. Would you care to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name is Helen Maroulis. I'm a 2016 Olympic champion in women's wrestling and a 2020 Olympic bronze medalist.
Fun stuff. Would you like to dive in right away to the Olympics?
Oh, sure. Ask away.
So, obviously, this year's Olympics were very, very, very different from the ones in Rio. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about what some of the major differences were, besides the whole COVID thing, not being able to go around and see Japan, obviously, but also all these different restrictions of what you can and cannot do.
Yeah, so the Olympics, I'm very grateful that I got to experience it in Rio, and then, to also have this experience in Tokyo was very eye-opening. It was definitely different this time around. We quarantined, we kind of just did our little bubble. We didn't go into the village, we didn't stay in the village. Or I went the last day to just get some souvenirs. But I mean, other than that, you really were pretty secluded. There weren't fans. We didn't go to the opening or closing ceremonies. So there are definitely some really special Olympic moments that we missed out on. But I think that the Olympic spirit was there, and the heart and soul kind of the Olympic movement. And that is just about, people coming together to perform and be their best and to do their very best and to just be united in that endeavor. And so I think that when you look at the pandemic and kind of how that drew people all around the world to come together and to unite and to, put our health first, I think that this Olympics kind of also resonated with that. So it was definitely different. It's definitely special. And I'm just so grateful that the Olympics even happened. So for me, it was a huge blessing.
So let's travel back in time to 2020. Everyone around the world was shocked that they were postponing the Olympics. Can you tell me a little bit about, if you remember the day when you found out about that, and just how you felt, and if you were if you were thinking any differently about how you were going to go into the Olympics a year later, different mentalities.
Yeah. So when the Olympics were delayed in 2020, I had just came back to wrestling in January of that year, and then it got delayed in March. I was recovering from concussions and some other stuff, a lot of injuries. So for me, the delay was a good thing for me personally, as far as just training and health. At the same time, there was a bit of fear and nerves, anxiety, just around like, a whole another year of training it's just kind of a scary concept for everyone. You're like, you're peaked, you're ready to go, and then you have to do it all over again, and so much can happen. So but I felt like it was the right decision. I voted for it to be delayed. I'm really happy that it was. I think that, I don't see any way that any other situation where it would have been safe, to do so. So
Yeah, I was glad that it was delayed too, but also like just the part of me as a fan watching from home, like, oh, I have to wait another year. Are you kidding me? Like that was the one thing I was like, oh, but I was so excited to sit around and do nothing for 2 weeks, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy. For myself, I didn't really have, I thought that I was going to retire after 2020, but I didn't really know what I was going to do. So I didn't have certain things set up. But there's some people that, before the delay, I mean, they had things set up. They wanted to have children, or they were planning to move here, or they were going to go back to school or start this job that they already committed to. And so when the delayed happened, it just really, for some athletes, it really like kind of derailed some of their plans. And I know some just kind of had to retire and not see it through for that next year. So it was really eye opening.
And then let's go back further in time to 2016, obviously when you won that gold in Rio. Tell me a little bit about, that gold medal match. What went through your mind? What happened after the medal ceremony? Did you celebrate a lot, or were you like, okay, I got this thing. Now it's time to get back to work?
So my experience in Rio, it was such a dream come true to win the Olympics. And one thing I really enjoy about wrestling is just that it parallels the journey that I'm going on in life, and it helps expose things, or teach me things about myself, and where I'm at that time. And so to win, it just affirmed that I can believe in myself, and that when I believe in myself, I can, I can achieve these things that I want. And on the flip side, it also, yeah, it just revealed a lot of other stuff to me. Just, I don't know. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like, normal people win the Olympics. Like, I can't believe this happened. And I actually lost a lot of my confidence after Rio, because I just didn't know why I won. I couldn't explain it. I knew that I was a good wrestler, but I just never, I don't think I really ever, in some ways in a million years, thought that I'd be able to be an Olympic champion. And that just highlighted like some insecurities that I had, that even winning won't fix or take away. And so it really motivated me to like get back and commit to 2020, and just really see that through, and want to learn those lessons and kind of grow deeper and learn more about myself.
For people that don't know who you were up against in Rio, do you want to talk about like how big of a deal that was, especially for, I guess, like people rooting for America in general? Like that was a pretty good matchup. If I don't say
Yeah.
so myself.
Yeah, thanks. So I wrestled Sayori Yoshida. She's a 16-time world and Olympic champion in women's wrestling. She won the first ever Olympics in 2004, and then she won every Olympic since, up until we wrestled. And she'd never lost a world championships or an Olympics ever in her entire life, except for the 2016 Olympics where I wrestled her. And, you know, obviously when someone's that accomplished, you're preparing for your own Olympic journey, you know that it's not going to happen unless you beat them. It wasn't, I never thought like, oh, maybe she'll lose to someone else in another round. I didn't want that. I knew that if I was going to be an Olympic champion, I was going to have to beat this woman. And so I studied her, and I flew to Japan as much as I could, which they didn't really allow foreigners in much, but I got to go for a couple days camp and just learn from her and just be around her. And she really just became this hero in my eyes. She was such a great person on and off the mat, and really like a true champion, and just so humble and kind, and just such a role model. And so wrestling her was like wrestling is really like wrestling one of my heroes. And I was happy for myself that I won, and then I was also just heartbroken that for her, it was really interesting journey, because she really helped me to, in an indirect way, like she pushed me to be the best version of myself.
I just after reading up about that, I was like, Oh my God. Like you don't really see that often, I guess, in the world of sports where you have this kind of like a David and Goliath situation, if you know what I'm talking
Mhm.
about. But
Yeah.
you guys aren't like enemies, you know? You're all just trying to wrestle.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that you say that because a lot of, I think in America, the media and a lot of people tried to paint that as the David and Goliath story. And for me, it wasn't that. Like, she wasn't the enemy. She wasn't this, this bad person. She was someone who transcended the sport and really kind of put women's wrestling on the map in a lot of ways, just by being so dominant and set the bar for all of us to get to that level. And especially for a sport like women's wrestling that's still fairly new, became an Olympic sport in 2004. We need that push, and we need that excellency and that dominance, because it drives you, right? People like going after things, and they like going after big goals. So she's been really incredible in that space and for what she's done for the sport.
I want to ask you now, the your origin story, basically, like how you got involved in wrestling, what, like, if you watched wrestling when you were younger and you had a favorite wrestler, basic origin story stuff.
Yeah. So I started wrestling when I was 7 years old. My older brother and my younger brother, who were all 21 months apart, I'm the middle child. So they had just joined wrestling a year or two before. And when my little brother joined, there weren't enough kids on the team. And so the coach asked my mom not to bring him back till, next year. And my mom didn't want to wait. So she just told me to take off my shoes and jump in and be my little brother's dummy. And after about 2 weeks of this hard training, I went to my parents and I said, "Hey, this isn't fair. I'm doing everything the boys are doing, but they get to compete and I don't." And so my dad made a bet with me that I could wrestle one match. And if I won that match, I could keep wrestling all year. So that was the only match I won. I was 1-30 my first year, but that was what allowed me to keep wrestling. And I just instantly fell in love with it from the first day. So,
Did you
yeah.
get to compete in high school?
Yeah. Yeah. I wrestled boys all through elementary, middle school, and then into high school. And then my senior year, I actually was invited to the Olympic education program in Northern Michigan. So it's a feeder program into the Olympic Training Center. And I went there for my senior year of high school to start training with only women.
It's really cool. I didn't know they had those kinds of programs. I'm all new to this Olympic
Yeah.
stuff, like, oh, there's these different training camps and all these different things that you can do. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, it's different for every sport. So I don't know what, I mean, I think sports like track and field, right, or swimming, they don't need that because they have that in their, universities and in high schools. But women's wrestling, I think boxing, speed skating, those are some of the programs that they have a Olympic feeder program.
So let's talk about college. Was that
Mhm.
was that a fun time for you? I'm a sophomore in college, so I'm trying to navigate the beautiful world of the college education system right now.
Yeah, I loved college, and good luck with the navigation, and I hope it's been a fun journey for you. Um, I college was such a fun experience. I went to school in Canada, and I really wanted to go to a big school and a good school academically, but also still wrestle. And Canada has that because they don't have NCAA Division 1, 2, or 3, and they also don't have Olympic training centers. So their Olympians will still train at the university that they went to. So I got to go to a really good school and then train with Canadian Olympians and national team members. And so it was the best situation for me to, do what I love and get better and also get an education. And I loved the experience there. I think your college years are, uh, I'm really grateful that I made good memories and I hung out with friends. I traveled a lot for wrestling and I was always just focused on wrestling and always about wrestling. But I would say college also had pockets of time where I was focused on my social life, or I had good, team bonding, and that's just really special. And you don't really get those years back. So I'm glad that was like that.
What did you major in?
Communications.
Communications person. I see. There's a lot of those out there, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. It was a bit different in Canada though. It was actually a lot different than in the US.
How?
Like a lot of my classes, times we're just learning about how bad the US is at X, Y, or Z. So it was quite, and then I would talk to a friend and they're like, oh yeah, we're learning about like the Second Amendment. And I'm like, oh, I'm learning about, I don't know, how the what stories go on the news and some other things. So it was really interesting.
Wow. Well, I'm a journalism major.
Oh,
So I guess I fall under the communications
oh,
stuff.
yeah. Yeah, I
Fun,
really
fun, fun times in school. Oh,
good.
whatever. I can't wait. I'm at community college. I'm gonna graduate in 2022 with my associates, and I'm gonna transfer somewhere.
Ah,
Somewhere.
hey, it'll when the time is right and the place is right, I'm sure it's gonna present itself, or when you know, you'll know. So
Oh, I hope so.
yeah,
My family has been like, "Where are you gonna go? Where are you gonna go?" I don't know.
yeah.
I
It's
don't,
fun. Oh, when we're living our lives, we're personally okay with that, the unknown. And I think part of that comes from there's like a deep rooted faith when you're on your path that like you know you're in the place that you need to be, or the right thing, the next step is going to present itself. But for loved ones around you, it's like it's hard to wait for another person, or you're not inside their mind, so you don't have that, maybe that calm or that assurance of like, oh, this is on track. So it's the same thing, like with wrestling. A lot of times my parents are like, well, you need to do this tournament, or what way are you going to go, or I'm just like, and I would just tell them like, look, I have to figure this out this way. I'm pursuing this, I'm taking this day by day, and unfortunately you're going to have to wait with me while I don't know as well. So
that's a
yeah.
great way to put it. Yeah, everyone be patient. A lot of my family listens to my show. So everyone be quiet and be patient. That's my advice for them. I want to ask you about, when you first got involved with Team USA, how you found out, what your reaction was, what your family's reaction was.
Team USA, like the Olympics, or just Team
Like
USA?
just in general with Team USA.
Yeah, I made my first senior world team in 2008. So I would have been the youngest, but I turned 17 that day, so I technically don't count as the youngest. But I was very young. I was 17 years old when I made my first world team in 2008. And I just remember going overseas and being able to be around all these women that I looked up to, that were my role models and my heroes, and just kind of getting to be in the same room as them or sit at the cafeteria with them, and be inspired by them. That was a really amazing experience. And then I guess I would say actually before that, one of the really cool things, because women's wrestling was fairly new, the first ever Olympic camp in 2004, the head coach, who's still the national team coach, Terry Steiner, he opened up the camp to any girl that wanted to go. Or I think you maybe need to place at nationals for your age group or something. But uh so I qualified. I was able to go to the first ever women's Olympic team camp in 2004, and I had no business being there. I mean, I wasn't this good wrestler or anything, that probably wouldn't happen for any other sport, but because women's wrestling was so new, it just kind of worked out, and I was in the right place at the right time, kind of a deal. And so that experience changed me for the rest of my life. And I remember going back to high school and coming back and training with the boys, and just being like, no, I know this is what I want to do. I saw what these women are sacrificing and what they're doing in order to be champions. And the guys just didn't understand it. They're like, no, it's like, you're obsessed about it, or you're taking it too far. I'm like, no, you like, I love this. I saw this. So I think just getting exposed to that at such a young age really helped fuel that drive and that commitment.
Have you been able to, work with younger girls trying to, try to become a wrestler, or like, have you been a part of different camps with Team USA, or maybe like different organizations like that?
Yeah, so we do a lot of like we'll have cadet, junior, and senior camps. Not so much in the last couple of years because I had the injuries. I didn't go to a lot of camps. I wasn't competing, and then because of COVID, we didn't have a lot of joint stuff. But when I moved home to Maryland, before the COVID started, I was started coaching at a kids club, and so we had like a handful of girls there, and they have big dreams, and it was just fun to, especially in my home state where I grew up, to just be coaching there and kind of see everything come full circle. That was, really a great experience for me and hopefully for the girls. I'd like to continue coaching in some capacity. I was going to go coach for the junior world team, I think in like 2018 or 2019. And it was 2019. And it was right before I got my last concussion. So I wasn't able to go. So hopefully those opportunities will come in the future.
So you see yourself as like becoming a coach somewhere, somehow?
Yeah, I don't, I don't know, like the coaching scene right now, especially for women, is just it's not really set yet. So women's wrestling just received emerging sport status from the NCAA for Division I wrestling, for all the divisions, and so that's really exciting. And you're thinking, okay, there'll be a coaching job, hopefully for me there in the future. But at the same time, I really love the international circuit, and and just also I like coaching age groups. I work a lot with Beat the Streets, which is a nonprofit that's for inner city kids, and it's really wrestling as a tool to teach them character development and to teach them, discipline and all these other attributes, and to help them kind of rise above their situation. And then I also recently started teaching wrestling to refugees at a refugee camp in Greece that I work with an organization with, and so there's a variety of different ways and avenues that it can go about. So I don't really know what, like I said, it's like when we were talking about family having to wait for that decision, I'm like, I know when it's ready, it's going to present itself. I just don't know what it is yet.
Okay. Good for you, honestly. Like, at least you know what you want to do in the future, kind of, and you're setting up, what's going to happen, possibly.
Yeah.
Just waiting patiently.
I really, it's funny, someone was talking to me about this, but like when I know, I just know, but I don't always find out like months in advance and like, okay, in 3 years, I'm going to live here and do this. It's more like, even before the Olympics, I flew to Poland, I competed, and I had a really bad knee injury. I was like, I probably shouldn't. If someone even potentially pulls my knee and it gets ripped out, that's like it. I'm not competing at the Olympics. But I just had this trust that I feel like I'm supposed to go because I need this tournament to prepare for the Olympics. And I went and I got my butt whooped. I got teched, and, I lost and didn't even place. But it was everything that I needed to be exposed to before the Olympics. And that's why I went there. It wasn't just about like going there to win. It was going there to make sure I have everything that I need. And it was that experience that just opened my eyes to like, I need to train with women and I need to get stronger. And in that exact moment, I met a coach out there and I decided to move to Arizona. And so literally 7 weeks before the Olympics, flew back from Poland, packed all my stuff, drove home, and then flew straight to Arizona and moved there. And it was literally the most life-changing 7 weeks. Like I never thought that I'd wrestle the way I did the Olympics. And I think it's really because of that 7-week move. So it's a very instant decision. It comes about when the moment presents itself. If there's no way I would have known that I was going to end up in Arizona. So that's like, I think I've had enough of those experiences where I just trust now, like, okay, if I coach, when it presents itself, I know I'm just going to know and I'm going to do it. But
do you think that training that you did in Arizona was one of the reasons why you medaled at this year's Olympics, or, part of it besides, actually competing?
Absolutely. 1000%. I literally transformed as a person and as a wrestler and as an athlete, and everything that I needed ended up being here in Arizona, from the training partners, the recovery, the spiritual healing, the coaching, the weight training, like everything fell into place. And before I left for Poland, I remember I was having a talk with my parents, and I was telling them that I didn't know if I was mentally stable enough to compete at the Olympics. Like, I just didn't know if I was going to be able to do it. There was still a lot of kind of concussions and mental health issues from that. And, I remember my dad and my mom, they both said, like, you really need to be done after this. Like, you have to stop wrestling. Like, this isn't good for you anymore. And when I came back from Poland, they just saw like a flip switch, and they were like, wow, something's different about you. And then when they visited me in Arizona, they were literally crying because they couldn't believe that I had not just gone back to my old way of wrestling, but like that I was just so healed and just really healed, like mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So it was life changing.
I think one thing that a lot of people, mostly like athletes, especially like on this show, I haven't had a true discussion about mental health, and I'm glad that you brought it up because I did want to talk about that
Mhm.
eventually on here. So I'm glad that the opportunity showed up today. Um, do you want to, if you're okay with this, you just want to talk about, some stuff that you've noticed with yourself and, how you learned to navigate, with the concussions and with some of the mental stuff you've been going through.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to talk about it. I was just speaking with a sponsor last night, and he was talking about, what is your story, and don't be afraid to tell your story, and don't like sugarcoat it in certain ways. And I said, no, I don't believe that I went through some of the things I went through in order to pretend like it never happened. And when I was going through some of the worst phases of my entire life, I just remember feeling so broken. And just for context, I was planning to compete in the Olympics August 7th, 2020. So I was going to wrestle 53 kilos. And August 7th of 2019, I was admitted into a mental institution against my will for apparent suicidal ideations, which I have no recollection of, but I had gotten hit in the ear. And so that was the last concussion that I got. And it triggered a whole bunch of psychological, mental, physical, like all types of issues just from this ear slap. But I think there was a lot of just stuff that was layered underneath it as well, that just everything kind of came to the surface. And so I remember being in this mental hospital, and they don't even let you sleep with a door, and they come in and they check on you every hour to see if you're breathing, and like you're just literally, it feels like you're just going through the day trying to pass a test to prove to people that you're not crazy and you're not going to hurt yourself. And it was my dad's birthday, and it was also exactly a year before I was going to compete in the 2020 Olympics. And I just remember thinking, how did I get here? Like how could I have been the first woman to win an Olympic gold medal and be so strong and powerful in that moment, and then now I'm all the way here in what feels like the worst, lowest, most broken situation to be in, where that people don't even trust that you can keep yourself safe. And I remember I got out and I met with the sports medicine staff at the Olympic Training Center, and I said, am I the worst case you've ever seen? Like, I have to be the worst case you've ever seen. And she said, no, you'd be surprised how many athletes have mental health issues. And I said, why aren't we talking about this? Like, why are we talking about athletes and parading them for, just being so hardworking, but also obsessive, and we're kind of praising all these things, and we're not talking about sometimes the dark side of sport, or the reality of things, which is that we're not robots, we're humans, and everybody has a breaking point. And I don't know, I think for me it was like the end goal wasn't about winning a gold medal anymore. It was about being the healthiest, best version of myself, because I already have a gold medal and I've been in a broken state with it. It doesn't fix anything. But to be in a place where I'm healed, and I have self-love, and I'm taking care of my health, and I'm around others who prioritize that as well and love me, and we can have that's like the true victory. And so I'm very passionate about talking about it.
I'm glad that you've gotten better and you found ways to deal with all of these problems. I remember in the 2016 Olympics,
Mhm.
where Allison Schmidt, a swimmer, for anyone that doesn't know who I'm talking about, she was very outspoken about mental health. And at that time in my life, like, I was personally struggling a lot. So it was so weird to see, an Olympian, an athlete on the national and worldwide stage talking about mental health. It was basically unheard of for me at that point. So in that moment for me, I realized oh, there are other athletes that are struggling, and there are just people that are talking about it. I was like, whoa, how how did this happen? It was just, it's so surreal. And then Michael Phelps, um, I've seen a bunch of commercials on TV with him and
Yeah.
BetterHelp. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one thing that a lot of people see. But I just want to ask you, was there ever a moment where you realized that maybe you could use your voice for this? Maybe a specific year that you realized, like, oh, I know that other people are struggling too. I'm not alone in this. I'm going to use
Yeah.
my voice.
Yeah. So, I mean, the example that I gave was like probably like the most extreme, but really before that, kind of going into the 2016 Olympics, and I failed to make the team in 2012. Um, and I was on anxiety medication at the time, and I family history of anxiety. It's like something I struggled with since I was a kid, even before wrestling. It's not performance anxiety; it was just, in general. And I remember being a kid and just looking at my heroes and seeing like Serena Williams and Mia Hamm and the women's wrestling team, and the media never they only covered their their strengths, and it kind of almost made it seem like to be a high level athlete you have to be this superhuman person. And so there's a quote I love, and it's don't compare your behind the scenes with everyone else's highlight reel. And that's what I did as a kid, because we don't know any better. And so I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, like Serena's amazing, she never loses at anything, she never seems to get nervous. And so if I want to be, compete like that and be like that good one day, I have to do that. But that's not me. I have all these fears and anxiety, and made all these comparisons. And then I really kind of stepped away from sports psych and everything, and went on my own faith journey, and really trusted God to teach me about myself. And I remember in that moment, I decided that I want to really be authentic and very transparent about it. And that's why after Rio, when I won, it wasn't like, oh yeah, I just believed in myself and I went on the mat and I did it. I really shared a lot. Like, no, I had fears. These were the anxieties. Like this is everything that I struggled with, because I don't want athletes or young female wrestlers to look up to me and think, oh wow, Helen has it all together, and so that's what I need to do in order to win, because that's not how it goes. And I think the more transparent we are, it will change things. And in the 2016 Olympics, we had 6 Olympic spots, 6 Olympians, and we only had 1 medal. And when that was my medal. And then this time around, we have 4 out of 6 medals. And we had 1 wrestle for a medal. So we literally, we had an amazing performance. And I think part of that is just that, like I felt like when I won and I came back, people were like, oh my God, Helen won the Olympics. Well, she can do it. I can do it, because they know me and they know my flaws and they know my weaknesses and they know that I'm not superhuman. And so I think for young kids, they need to see that as well, that me and my teammates, like, we're not superhumans. We have all of our flaws, and you can still win with all of that. And yeah, that's what I like speaking out about. And that's what I want kids to know.
I'm glad that we could, talk about this on here, because again, I've been wanting to have some sort of discussion on it. So I'm glad that I got to have it with you, of course.
Oh.
It was just the stuff that you said in general, for I don't even know how long we've been talking about this for, but super, super insightful. Like, I'm probably going to post it on social media because people, need to see and listen to it. So thank you again for speaking about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now it's time for our lightning round questions.
Sweet.
Okay, so my first question always is, if you're reading a book or listening to an audiobook or just have a favorite book in the past, what is it? Why do you like it?
Oh man, there's a book called fiction. There's a book called what's it called? Jacob the Baker, and by Noah Ben Shea. It's amazing. And you said, and why? It's about a man that is working as a baker making bread, and he always writes these notes to himself. And one day the notes actually get stuck in, like, they get baked in the bread. And so when the bread goes out to people all over the town, they find these notes and they think that he's a prophet because the notes have so much wisdom on them. And so they all start coming to him and asking him questions, and they want him to, to give them all life's answers. And he's just overwhelmed by this, and he doesn't feel like that at all. And it's really beautiful. It's really easy read too. It just covers different topics. And one of the quotes from there is that really helped me in wrestling was the fears that we cannot climb become our walls. And that was like, I really liked that one. And then Nonfiction. Oh, I have a bunch of stuff that I like. I you know I love being in the Word, and then there's also a book called Sermon on the Mount right now, and that's just kind of about spirituality and your thoughts, and how kind of your thoughts shape your life and stuff like that. But it's really beautifully written.
What do you listen to on game day? If you listen to anything, I've had people tell me they just don't listen to music when they're preparing for matches or whatever. I'm like, okay, but do you have a certain playlist set up?
Yeah, for like the last 6, 7 years, I always listen to like worship music, um, or Christian music, and then in the last year, I just stopped listening to music. I really felt that um, I wanted to be present, and I didn't want to escape any of the emotions or have anything influence them. I wanted to feel the full range of everything and work through it on my own. So that kind of felt like the path that I was on then.
Living in the moment, I see.
Yeah. Although I like working out to music, that's always nice.
Oh, okay. So you'll do the working out, it's fine, but you gotta
Yeah.
live in the moment, see what's
Yeah.
happening around you, kind of thing.
Yeah. When I was
Yeah.
at state college, the team, they'll play one song on repeat for the entire practice, and they'll do that for weeks at a time. And so it's kind of like a mental toughness thing, or it's like to see who breaks or not. So like honestly at this point I'm just used to zoning noise out.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
What is your favorite sport to watch on television?
Oh man. I don't watch that much TV, but I like following sports. I probably watch MMA, just because it's close with wrestling and I know a lot of people. And then I love actually on like social media watching rhythmic gymnastics, and I love watching dancing. I'm actually really, really big into dancing. So
Do you have a favorite Olympic gymnast from this past Olympics?
Um, well, I don't know any of the US rhythmic gymnastics. I like just the Rita. She's a Russian. She competed in 2016. I watched a documentary on them, so I watched that. And then for US like artistic gymnastics, obviously Simone Biles, her story is very, very inspiring and compelling. And I love that she spoke up about mental health stuff too.
Yes, she was super, super instrumental, you know,
Mhm.
during the Olympics this past year. And then I forgot to mention also like Naomi Osaka within the past year has been
Yeah.
also like incredibly instrumental. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Her journey is amazing. And the things that she's spoken up about, and just the strength it takes to make certain decisions for your career and for your mental health is like, it's like that strength is incredible.
So if you weren't a wrestler, do you know what you would be doing? Like as a job or whatever?
Okay. I would live by, well, do I do I get to be as good as that thing as I am in wrestling? Or is it like, if I'm not wrestling, I have to like
Just whatever you want to do.
I I would love to have been to be a dancer. I love salsa dancing and bachata. I love all forms of dancing, but I do those two the most. And then I think figure skating or rhythmic gymnastics would be so fun to do. Like you're just in a sport where you have like a bunch of apparatuses, and I don't know. I feel like wrestling is artistic to me. I feel like I get to create art through the movement of my body and my muscles. It just it looks a certain way, and I think I still think it's poetic, but I think that rhythmic gymnastics and figure skating are just poetic in a different form, and I like that too.
Yeah, I like to watch that stuff, but I never want to try it. It's just like, no, no, I'm good. You guys are like pros at this. All right, I'm just gonna let it happen. I'll just watch.
Yeah, I'm like, how do you throw a ball up in the air and then do like 3 flips and then catch it?
Yeah,
Heck, it's so cool.
I would definitely drop the ball. No
Oh,
doubt about it. I would so drop the ball.
don't say that. You don't know.
I got tiny hands. They like how they like palm it or whatever. I can't do that. I can't even palm a basketball.
For him who believes. It was just maybe when we're like 3 years old.
Is there do you have a favorite Olympics moment from all the Olympics, like video records, of course, any favorite highlights from any of the Olympics ever?
I I love the Olympic movement, and I cry for every any big win or like heartwarming, story. I'm like a sucker. I just bawl. So, yeah, there's not like one specific one that comes to mind.
Nothing.
No, not like a top one. What's her name? She was an alpine skier? Um, I can see her. I just can't think of her name right now, but she won the gold in what was it, Sochi? And it's just like people that when they're like not expected to win and then they win, or what, I don't know. I just always cry for those moments.
I have a few, but they're like I liked when Phelps won
Oh
in Rio. That was cool.
yeah, yeah, that was
I didn't really watch the Olympics this year just because of the time zone thing.
yeah,
And then I
yeah.
was working a lot when they were on at night because I work for a baseball team. So I'm there
Uh,
at night and I can't watch anything because I gotta watch the damn game.
yeah, yeah.
So I would like scroll through Twitter and be like, "Oh, I can't believe I missed Katie Ledecky," or
Oh
something
no.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, yeah. No, that time change is brutal. So I get it.
One final question before we wrap things up here. What is your advice for anyone that wants to get into wrestling?
My advice for anyone that wants to get involved in wrestling, I would say just go out there and try it. Um, it's such an amazing sport. It's going to teach you so many things about yourself, body awareness. It's going to give you confidence. It's going to teach you that you are capable of more than you think you are, and it will produce resiliency and really just stepping out there and having the courage to try. You'll never regret that. You might decide it's not for you, or you just might not want to continue doing it, but sometimes when you have like an itch for something, or you just want to give it a go, and you don't, you'll look back and you'll always wonder. And so I just am a big believer in like going for something, and so that way I have peace of mind and I know that I don't have to look back and regret not ever trying.
All right, so I want to thank Helen for coming on today's episode. Where can people follow you on social media?
My handle is at Helen HELEN _ Maroulis MAROULIS, and that's for my Instagram and my Twitter. Yeah, I think I
Is
have
there
a Facebook.
anything you have a Facebook or you don't have a Facebook? What did you say?
I'm in the works with the website. It hasn't been updated for a while, but yeah.
Facebook is tricky to use.
I know. I barely ever go on anymore.
I tried setting up a page for my podcast, but I connect it to my Instagram. So every time I post on Instagram, it just goes on the Facebook. I'm like, okay, I don't have to do anything.
Oh gosh, that's pretty.
Is there anything you want to shout out before we end things here?
Nothing I can think of. Yeah, thank you for having me, and really grateful for this opportunity, and I wish you all the best. And yeah, I just appreciate everyone that tuned in and listened.
All right, time for my ending spiel. You ready for this? It's a fun one.
I don't know. I hope so.
It's well, the thing with my podcast is I don't script anything, so it just comes from my noggin. So like I know everything that I need to say because I do this every week. And I talk about the same stuff unless there's something new that's happening. It's like, oh, I got to talk about this. But this is really beautiful thing. I have social media. You want to follow it? That's so great. I'll tell you where you can find me on Twitter and Facebook. Same handle. It's at WSM Podcast. And on Instagram, you can follow me at Women's Sports Matter. I have a YouTube channel. It's the Women's Sports Matter Podcast. I'm working on setting that back up again. I have no idea when that will happen. Hopefully soon. I keep saying it. I gotta do it, but I gotta find the time for it. Let's see. When will this episode come out? I think, okay, I'm not going to talk about the recall election because by the time this episode comes out, I think it might have happened already. I don't know. Yeah. So I'm going to skip over that.
Okay. Sweet.
And then let's see, what else is there? Oh, If you haven't been vaccinated yet, don't worry. I can point you in the right direction. I'm going to ask nicely. I'm just saying, hey, I'm giving you a little resource here. If you go to vaccines.gov, put in your address. If you live in the United States, you can find the nearest vaccination site near you. Guess what? I have a testimonial from my cousin who clicked on the link, put in her home address, and got her daughter a vaccine. Awesome. Good job, Emily. I'm finally glad that you got the damn jab. I'm asking nicely, of course. Like, if you want to go get it, you can. Delta's being a brat, so save yourself and save the people around you, and continue to wear a mask and just be kind to people. Don't be rude about the whole mask thing. It's getting annoying. Stop making it a personality trait, guys. Come on. I also have other resources linked down below. You can check those links out. There's a register to vote thing. There is like a find your legislator, find your senator website. So there's that. But I've got nothing else to say. I'm going to go do some homework now and get ready to go to work. So without further ado, this is the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Women's Sports Manor podcast. My name is Gianna Belcastro, and I am your host. I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. That's all, folks. See ya.